This is Tuesdays with Artificial Intelligence, with your host, Peter Ward.
Welcome to Tuesday with Artificial Intelligence. It's March 2026. I have a great guest who was actually on the show last year. Carl, how are you? Good to see you again.
It's good to see you too, Peter. Thank you for having me.
Right. Okay. So you're based in Canada.
Yep.
What part of Canada?
In Montreal, Quebec.
Okay. Very nice. Okay. And I see a bit of a piano in the background here. Like, are you a bit of a, is this sort of like some site, some band you're in, or you do a bit of Elton John numbers or something?
I don't know if we've covered any Elton. You're making me wonder if we have. We definitely do. We're a cover band. We don't do any originals. Really give the people what they want. But we do cover music from that era, anywhere from 60s to 70s all the way to today. Mostly focused on classic rock, funk and soul and R&B.
So you should have told us this. You could have done a little bit of a rendition at the beginning, actually.
Yeah.
So what do you do? A few bar mitzvahs, weddings, So what do you do here?
These days, it's mostly entertaining each other at the studio, having some beers and having fun. But we do one or two like outdoor shows in parks in the summer, and we'll do some pub shows as well. Cool. We had one at the end of last year. We try like once per quarter to have a show for our friends and family and whoever is into enjoying the music.
Right, very cool. Now, I know you're very focused on Teams, integration, and voice. And this podcast is really, or this show is very much more on how to basically AI enable your Teams conversations with Copilot. But before we sort of do a bit of a sort of use case and deep dive on that, just to tell me about who you actually work for, because I know the company you work for has given you a lot of knowledge and insight to this technology and the use cases as well.
Yeah, so I work at a company called Xero. We're a Microsoft solutions partner. Very deep specialty in voice. From a Microsoft standpoint, we have a calling for Microsoft Teams specialty. Specifically myself at Xero, I lead our engineering team, working primarily on the Xero platform. And what that is a platform for day-to-day management of users and phone numbers in Microsoft Teams, and it has very powerful migration capabilities as well. So folks that are wanting to move legacy phone systems, whether it's an old Cisco or Navia or a Mitel, or even more modern UCaaS systems like a Zoom or a RingCentral, they want to move that over to Teams Phone. Our platform assists with that migration, taking the time, let's say from 6 months down to a few weeks to get your phone system moved into Microsoft Teams.
Got it. I know when we spoke earlier, I sort of described the products as very much like, it's almost like the ShareGate for Teams just as ShareGate's the migration tool for SharePoint. Your tool is the ShareGate for Teams migrations. Is that a bit of an overstatement or a good analogy?
That is a good analogy. ShareGate for Teams Phone is a very good analogy of what our platform does exactly in terms of the migration capabilities, 100%.
Right, very cool. Okay. All right, so let's just talk about, I've got where your product is, but let's just talk about the SharePoint, let's say Teams out of the box and the Copilot. So obviously you've got things like Otter and Firefly, and those tools, which I've noticed, they sort of summarize the conversation at the end of the meeting, which is all very well. But now Copilot really adds a bit more power to the sort of like the actual conversation going on.
Yeah, we can dive into some use cases. I have some visuals prepared, but essentially, yes, by having everything natively handled by Copilot, there are some advantages or edges, if you will, that Copilot can offer that some of these third-party tools don't. For example, everything is native within Microsoft Teams. You have speaker identification with folks being able to enroll their voices, which a third-party tool might not be able to understand who is speaking in the room, that sort of thing. And lastly, I've noticed that some of these summarization tools, they're not always necessarily live and embedded in your conversations, whereas Copilot is. You can, for example, join a meeting late and summarize, pick up where you left off, ask questions. Did I miss anything? So it's kind of like 365 Copilot. It's kind of like having an assistant right by your side in that call, live assisting you with whatever question you may have missed or comment you need to make, that kind of thing.
Right. Because that is quite a nice feature where it's picking up the voice and it's excluding other people's voices, particularly now where you have like this whole people working at home and they've got family running around as well. You don't necessarily want to have somebody picking up, like saying like, what are we having for dinner tonight? You know, that coming into the mix.
Yeah, exactly. If you want, I'm just going to scoot right to that slide. Well, you know, we can go a bit all over the place, but
as we always do. But yes, yeah. Okay, all right.
Exactly.
I know you've got a format. I know you've got a PowerPoint deck, so let's just go through it logically. But if you want to do what you want to do,
yeah. Look, we're talking about it. Let's dive into what we're talking about tangibly right here. We're talking about voice isolation and enrolling your voice in Teams. And Microsoft is trying to accelerate people signing up with this. You'll see on the bottom left here that this is fairly new as of an announcement of February 20th.
Are you showing your screen, by the way? Are you showing your screen?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
That would help.
Yes, that would help. That would help. So to recap what we were talking about, what we're really specifically talking about here is enrolling your voice into Microsoft Teams. Microsoft is making efforts in ensuring that enrollment becomes even easier for end users, just as of, as you can see on the bottom left, as of February 20th, 2026, they introduced a major change where they're going to make that enrollment even easier for folks, be a little more proactive in the Teams client to enroll your voice. And what does that do? What benefits does that bring? First of all, as you were alluding to, Peter, is filtering out not only background noise, but background voices, and really isolating your own voice. So people often think like, oh, well, I have noise cancellation on my device, or I have noise cancellation and this other tool I'm using. I'm familiar with noise cancellation, but there's a distinction between noise cancellation and voice isolation. It goes a step further in really identifying your voice and filtering out everybody else's. So say you're at the office today. It's a very common scenario where people have shared office spaces. Maybe you're on a conversation with a client, transcription is enabled, it's going to contribute to eventual notes. There's two salespeople behind you. They're having a very sensitive conversation that they shouldn't be having right behind you. You don't want that transcription to pick up on what they're saying. Maybe it's your kids are having a screaming match in the background working from home. All that gets completely filtered out, and it works like very, very well. The other huge benefit, and it's one that's more related to your summaries, is that it is capable now of identifying who is in the room. And so when we talk about some of those other third-party tools, like we mentioned Otter AI as an example, I think the best you can do if you don't know who's speaking in the room is it's going to say something like conference room 1 said this and conference room 1 said that. But with true speaker identification now, you can see on the bottom right with John and Sean here having enrolled their voice prints, although they're in the room, the transcript is able to identify them and kind of lock in on who said what within the room. And that is so important when you're having these big discussions in a room and you want to understand who took this conclusion, took that action item, who's accountable to this, who said that. Now you have a clear picture of exactly who said what in the room in your AI transcripts and in your summarization. Right.
Okay. You just mentioned something about voice prints. So it's now getting to the stage where my company has got facial recognition footprint of me. It's got a thumb recognition footprint of me, and it's now getting voice footprint of me. Now, is there any kind of like, it's not HIPAA, but is it PIP or P? Well, any personal information privacy, or is that PIP? Has anybody complained about this to you?
I'm sure people have. I haven't heard it personally, but I do know that Microsoft is good about it, and that you can even at any time, disengage from it and delete your voice print if you're not comfortable with that. So whatever they are gathering, you could completely opt out if you're not comfortable with that. It's a very good point, though, Peter. I don't know. I'm not the know-all.
No. Okay. One of the things is like we, particularly with some of our European clients with GDPR. Okay, there's now like on our website, anyone can actually request what information they've got from them. Okay, so when we do actually recruitment. So of course, if you submit a resume, you have the right to request. We have to delete that resume and prove that and prove we've deleted any personal information, i.e. your address, your phone number, even though you actually filled it in and you actually submitted this information to us.
Yes.
Okay.
So that point I'm aware of. Like in the team settings page, you can see what they've gathered and you can nuke it if you're not comfortable with them having it. And so in that regard, they are very compliant.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Carry on. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, what I did want to do today was kind of go over maybe like there are 4 different aspects or 4 areas we can touch on with regards to AI enabling every conversation in teams. And really the goal that I'm trying to get at here, and this is a guiding light, shiny star that we've taken at Zero, is making every conversation count. We want to bring video to every Teams user, bring voice, to every Teams user, and intelligence to every conversation. You want to make every conversation you're having count. You've had too many conversations that are misaligned. They go nowhere. So we're on a mission to change that so that every meeting, every message leads to clarity, action, and progress. And broken it down into 4. I don't know if we're going to have time to go through all these 4 things. We'll see how it goes. But the first part is understanding your phone system and not leaving it behind. There are many easy ways to integrate your phone system into Microsoft Teams, and that voice data is so important, and it needs to be part of your AI fabric. And it costs less than you might think to integrate it. And then I've just prepared a bunch of examples of how that phone system can work with Teams. And a bunch of additional use cases and features that are not necessarily just phone related, but hey, conversations that are in rooms, conversations that are in meetings, and then extending all that out of Teams is probably, if time allows, we can get into that as well. Does that work with you, Peter?
Yeah. Go for it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So just very quickly, I come interrupting. What are we looking at? E3, E5 here, E5 Premium. What are we talking about here?
Good point, Peter. So what we're talking about is Microsoft 365 Copilot. So that is not included in an E5 or an E3. It is a standalone, roughly floats around $30 a month, I believe is what it's listed at. And this is what Microsoft is pushing at. So that the Copilot is an 365 Copilot is an add-on to the E3 or the E5, and the other aspect from a licensing standpoint is phone system. Phone system is included in the E5, and we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
So Microsoft has been really pushing their agentic AI with their 365 Copilot, and I think everybody knows this. They've been so loud about it. Everybody knows about Copilot and how it can help you draft your emails and help you in Teams and draft Word documents and pivot tables in Excel and build PowerPoint slides. But what I really want to lean into is Copilot's capability in AI powering every conversation you're having in Teams. Microsoft is really pushing the aspect of, hey, Teams is where the magic happens. Teams is where all interactions happen, whether it's meeting or chatting or calling or collaborating. And I want to put your attention really, focus your attention really for a second on Teams Phone, because it's a piece that many businesses don't always consider when evaluating getting the most out of their Copilot license. And this is a quote from Leon Wright, who is a Converged Communications AI evangelist, that he said last month, actually, in a Converge Comms bootcamp. He said, telephony is one of the biggest workloads behind email in ensuring that it is addressable by your AI. It is crucial in delivering on customers' AI impact. In other words, don't forget that, hey, a lot of important decisions, a lot of conversations, a lot of action items are taken on phone calls. And today, they're floating on one of these devices. They're not, and all those important decisions, all those conversations, they're not necessarily happening or converging back into Teams for your Copilot agent to be able to assess, remind, give you summarization, all that. You're losing out on those benefits if they're just floating on either on a cell phone or on another third-party system that is not yet integrated into Teams.
Mm-hmm.
And so, quoting another leader in the space, Rick Garcia, he had a presentation last year at Commsverse, and he was saying, hey, look at Teams Phone as the foundation of AI enabling your phone system, and think of it really as like, hey, that is your starting point. That is your enterprise grade calling platform. You can then perform things like call summarization, transcription, intent recognition, start doing things like smart routing, and maybe for people that have a contact center light or contact center, a full-blown contact center, all these things are possible with Teams, and really focus on, hey, you only really need that human escalation for more complex issues or for more strategic outcomes. And when you start to think about that, I'm like, oh, okay. Well, yeah, like maybe I should be moving my phone system to Teams, but ooh, that's going to cost me a lot of money. Like, migrating, and what does that look like? And really, there are. It's not maybe the word. It's not as bad as people might think, or it's actually costing you less than you might think is maybe the right way to say it. You have to embrace that people's habits have changed, and there are many options that people don't realize are available. One of the main ones is shared calling. Microsoft released this a couple years ago, but it's a beautiful thing. What it is basically, hey, if I've got a bunch of people that have low inbound calls, low outbound calls, they really don't make a lot of calls on their phone anymore. They're mostly having web meetings, or they're I think of my developers on my team. They're mostly having Slack chats. They're mostly in Teams. They're mostly having Teams to Teams calls. But if I want to make sure that I'm really capturing, even when they do receive a call or place a call, there's something known as shared calling, where people with very, very low traffic can just share a single phone number, and they can share a single calling plan. So your cost is dramatically reduced. And so that's something that we've been doing at Xero, is we look at people and we look at their calling habits, and we say, like, hey, we're in 2026 now. People aren't picking up the phone as much as they used to. You have a subset of your users that can move off of this dedicated plan that you're paying $20, $30 a month for, and move towards this shared calling model, which brings down the cost drastically.
Okay, so is this minutes? Is this basically, okay, we're going to go have a call. We've got these 5 developers. We reckon you're going to have 500 minutes a month. Okay, shared, basically.
Yeah. So what you're doing is you're bundling minutes, and you're bundling the phone number. The minutes are pay as you go. So you buy a pool of minutes, and it's up to 10,000 people here, Peter. So you can have a large pool of people that are sharing the same phone number, and that share these bundled minutes, and that you just pay as you go. And people are the first question people say, well, if they're sharing a phone number, how do I reach that person? Through an auto attendant. So if these people are sharing that phone number, when they call outbound from Teams, let's say they're calling a delivery driver, they're calling a cell phone somewhere to a person, the number that is advertised is that main number that everybody is sharing. And if that person doesn't answer, and let's say calls back, they will be prompted to, hey, welcome to company ABC. Please say the name of the person that you're trying to reach. And with a, they can reach.
So I've got my company with 50 employees. I call the general number, and it says, please enter the first 3 letters of the person's last name. And it says, do you want to speak to Joe Smith? Yes. Ding. That's the perfect use case here.
You got it. You perfectly understood. And now the next one down is, it's kind of, you could say, hey, for somebody who's receiving the occasional call, perfect, very cost effective, and doesn't matter that the user experience is not the best. Let's agree that the user experience is not the greatest. I'm dialing a number and I'm punching, or I'm trying to say the name. It's taking me 30 seconds, if you will, to reach that person. But if they're occasionally receiving a call, not a big deal. But if you do notice that, hey, you have few employees, they're receiving a lot of inbound calls, but they don't actually place a lot of calls, well, then you're into this next row, which is still a very cost-effective option, which is known as pay-as-you-go. What Microsoft is saying there is, okay, we'll give your user, that particular person, a dedicated number. So no more going into an automated system. They get their own dedicated number. I dial that number, it goes directly to that person. However, they don't make a lot of outbound calls. So don't worry about paying the $12, $15 for a dedicated plan. Just pay per minute for the occasional time that they place those outbound calls. And that's what pay-as-you-go is. And so it's yet another attractive option for folks that are maybe receiving a lot of inbound calls, but not really placing a lot of outbound calls. Remember, with a lot of providers, including Microsoft, the cost is on the outbound minutes, not the inbound minutes.
So let me ask, okay, so remember the good old days of Skype? Okay. Yeah. So one of the advantages which Skype is that I could be in the US and then I can call a number in Germany and it wouldn't be an international call. It would sort of like route it to Germany and then leave the Skype network in Germany. So it would be seen as a local or national call. Is that something which this can do, or we're not quite there yet?
I'm not familiar with that. I do know that for calling plans, that like the way it is laid out is with pay-as-you-go is it will charge you differently based on whether you're placing a local or national or international call. But it is still insanely cost effective if this person isn't placing a lot of calls. And your comment is a good segue into the third one. Microsoft does offer bundled calling plans where you just say, hey, I'm placing a lot of calls and I need a bundle because I'm making a lot of international calls and I need a cost-effective option. Well, Microsoft does offer those kinds of bundles as well, where you have a flat fixed rate per month. And it includes that kind of thing of, hey, I need to be able to call the UK or Germany, and I need a national plan to call across the country. They have those kinds of things as well. So that would probably be a closer answer to what you're looking for. I'm not familiar with exactly the scenario you described. Does that make sense, Peter?
Yeah. It totally makes sense. Because one of the things I've noticed, like obviously I've been using, everyone in the workplace uses calls, and obviously cost. It's international. We're now in an international world. Now, obviously, the phone companies are not making their money on minutes anymore because it's all data. Like it's very rare. Like I've spoken to you multiple times. I don't think I've ever called your number actually. Okay. Yeah. Because I'm going to send you. Because firstly, you want on the invite, or I hit you up on Teams or WhatsApp, and then we're speaking on that. Okay. But obviously, when you're dealing with, but that's because we've got an agreed relationship of the platform we're using, the phone system, i.e. customers, a dentist office calling people back. They're not using Teams or WhatsApp. Okay, so that's where that is.
Yeah, you got it. You perfectly understood. And I see it in certain business. Look, the reality is this is what I meant by people's calling habits have changed. And you and I, Peter, in our interactions is a perfect example of that. We exchange on email and then we just set up meetings. So I've never actually called your actual cell phone, but there are many businesses that are still calling numbers out there that are, I think of customers that have support hotlines or retail, or we spoke to a big business that are dealing with lots of delivery drivers that are on the road. And so all these delivery drivers have cell phones with phone numbers, right? So I'd say that the habits have changed, and that's why you have to evaluate it. Not everybody needs to have a full-fledged calling plan that allows them to place, lots of minutes. There are options for those folks that have very low usage.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
And so you asked earlier about E5 or E3, and this is another big thing, especially in enterprise. So many folks have that E5 license, right? I make the analogy that the E5 license is like the all-you-can-eat buffet. It has everything from like security, and it has all the production tools, productivity tools in there. It has things in Entra. It's really a very, very inclusive license. And I often say it's the same exercise of, hey, why are you paying for Dropbox licenses if you can use OneDrive? Why are you paying for Slack if you can use Teams? Same thing here. The phone system license is included in an E5. So often I'm like, well, why are you double paying for your phone system? Why are you using a Verizon or a Bring Central or an 8x8 when you can use the license that you have in Teams? And it's also a cost from a management standpoint. Well, why are you managing two systems when you can have the license that you have available within your E5?
Yes.
So this is always a big thing of reminder, Teams phone is included in the E5.
There is that. Like, I don't know about you. We often have a lot of our clients are on E3, and we show them all like the goodies of E5, and there's a little bit of a kickback. I say, can you stop bumping up the Microsoft licenses? And I keep on saying, look, you're double paying for stuff. This is what it does give you, actually. And sometimes it's difficult to get a CTO's head round the facts that, by the way, you are paying for this extra stuff here. Why don't you bundle it on one, into one subscription? But also, this is the value it gets. And there's also an element where users will use the lowest common. Like if you look at Excel, most users don't use 90% of it. They use 3-4% of it. Okay. Try and get most people in a company to do a pivot table. They won't know how to do it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So E5, all these goodies, but it's one thing buying licenses, but you also need to have that adoption process to get people using all these goodies. And so that requires a shift, hence the transformation manager in the organization.
Yes, I so completely agree. I saw a report that was published by Microsoft that said something like people are leaving close to like $80 on the table per month per user with E5s because of them not fully utilizing all the stuff there and still paying for third-party products instead. So the point you're making is spot on.
Well, it's more than that. Like if you look at Copilot, people say, you can write up documents quick and you can do this. But one of the things, including myself, that I noticed the big value of Copilot is that it coaches you to tone down emails, prevent having wars with customers and then annoying employees when you're at 11 o'clock at night and you've just seen a completely screwed something up. Okay, well, Copilot can make it more diplomatic, more empowering, and coach you on that. Okay, so it prevents this back and forth with an employee, and that is priceless.
I agree. And look, tying that E5 discussion into Copilot is actually where I was going next. Is sometimes folks are like, well, it's Copilot's expensive. Well, I get the the ROI on it. And what you just said is part of that conversation of saying, hey, if Copilot can save you 2-3 hours and reduce frustrations here and there, it's done its job. You've got the return on investment. But if you tie in this other conversation of, hey, by the way, you also have this legacy phone system that you're double paying for, and you can leverage your E5 license instead. Well, then you could take some of these savings into funding those Copilot licenses. It's an interesting twist, but it's one that I've seen companies do and saying like, hey, let's take the save. They're looking for budget for those Copilot licenses, consolidating to E5. And a lot of companies already have the E5 because it was driven by security decisions, but other decisions that were not phone related, right? And so if they already have E5, well, you can look at getting some of those savings through your E5 consolidation, and then drive your Copilot purchase and adoption that way.
Yep.
And so that's kind of talking to the financials of it, and it's really from the aspect of like, oh, well, what is this going to cost me? What does it look like? And so to wrap up, it's just, hey, when you do this migration, recognize that people's habits have changed. There are some cost-effective options, and look at the licensing structure with Microsoft with E5. And the E5 one is a familiar one for many folks for the reason you said it. It touches on many other areas for the same reason. Where I wanted to go next is really, hey, what does an AI-enabled phone system look like in Teams? And like people often, I've seen many presentations like this where it's spoken high level, but I figured it would be a good exercise to go into some real examples. Like, what does it mean day to day? That's where I wanted to go next. And so the first one is probably the most obvious one that I think of, that everybody thinks of when they think of an AI-enabled phone system, and that is recapping your calls. And many folks who are Teams users or are other collaboration users understand this concept. They whether they're using Teams or Zoom or other platforms, a lot of them have this capability of recapping your meetings. And so what you're seeing here is a screenshot of a meeting recap with slides and speaker tracks and AI notes. But what I've put here on the bottom right is, hey, by the way, when you integrate your phone system into Teams, you have that same capability for conversations that are happening on phone calls. And so you get that same kind of call recap, that same intelligence, that it's going through that same engine. And so that is an important thing. Sometimes people are like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that by doing this, I get that same awesomeness with the phone system. And so somebody can just call myself, my number. It funnels into a Teams. It's the Teams app that rings on my phone. All of a sudden, the phone is doing the hard work. The app is doing the hard work for me, summarizing the call. And what that means, if we go through an example, here's one that I put together. Jordana, she's a field account executive. She takes a customer call while commuting between client visits. She has no access to a laptop or a notepad, and she's using Teams phone on mobile. By the way, this was some people might see this as looking familiar. Some of it was borrowed from a slide from Microsoft, but essentially she's out on the go. She picks up the phone, speaks with the client, and now she has real-time transcription and summarization. She doesn't have to worry about pulling out a notepad. She doesn't have to worry about getting her laptop. She can focus on just providing that customer a good experience and focus on the conversation at hand. And so things like pricing or competitor mentions or any follow-ups are handled for her on her behalf from 365 Copilot that is with her on that call. When she gets back to her desk, she's got everything she needs. She opens Teams. She sees that she sees those summarized notes from the call, including the timeline and the discussion topics. So all of this is really like a mobile-first experience. And basically improving both customer sat as well as improving Jordana's productivity, saving her time. The next one I was going to touch on was intelligent call transfers. This was recently added to Teams phone capability. And what this is, Peter, I'm sure you've experienced this as much as I have. You call somewhere, maybe it's a store, it's a business, you explain your problem, you're talking to somebody, you explain what's going on, and then they transfer you. And they transfer you to the next person, and then they don't know anything, they have no context, and you have to repeat yourself all over again.
Well, it's also, in today's world, it's worse than that. Just as you've got more information about the customer expects you to have more information about them. So when you're calling them, there's something like American Express is a good example. When I call them, they will tell me, oh, hi, am I speaking to Peter? Because they've got my phone number. It's coming up on the caller ID. Great, no problem. And then so it's immediately they know who I am. They've got my account set up, and then they can address my my issue. Like one of the things like with call centers, which have been outsourced to the where it's all on price. You've got to have a call center is a great opportunity where the customer service is serving the customer and they're asking you questions that they can't figure out on their own. So you want to be learning that and making that experience as easy as possible, as frictionless as possible, so you can get more information. And also it creates brand loyalty as well. Like instead of having this like going through 8 realms of hell to basically to get to someone to like say, can you just can you dial this 1-800 number after like 3 bounces around the company?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I'll add to that. You mentioned American Express as an example, and these are companies that are using big contact center solutions that are capable of doing phone number lookups. They're generally tied to a CRM. But Teams and Teams Phone has kind of blurred the lines a bit because a lot of this intelligence is now easy to do with even some very basic setup without needing to engage in a Dynamics contact center or a NICE or a Genesis. And so I'll just fast forward to a couple of slides where I have that. But basically, Microsoft has introduced obviously the capability of having agents. And so you can have these autonomous agents that are automatically pulling up information for that person that's answering the phone, being able to address things quickly. And this could be tied to, like you're saying, you can easily tie this to a database of customers, making it easy to look up who's on the phone, understand their past incidents. And if they have questions about a particular product, or they have technical things that they want to ask, well, you can delegate that to the agent and be able to answer those questions very quickly. In fact, even at Xero, we did this. We spun up very quickly a knowledge base agent that was able to help our own support team, where when somebody calls in and they have a quick question, hey, you can delegate this off to the agent, and it's going to quickly scour through knowledge base and answer those questions quickly and effectively. And so tying that all together, I put up another example. But imagine Priya here. She's a tier 1. Imagine she's like brand new at the company. Okay. So she doesn't understand the product yet super well. She's stressed out. It's always nervous. You're picking up the phone, speaking to customers for the first time, and you feel a bit uneasy. Well, imagine that now she has live assistance from an AI agent. She can get answers quickly and effectively. That gives her a confidence boost, right? That relaxes her a bit. That gives her, provides a better experience to the customers that she's answering the phone for. And it also helps her in giving live assistance quicker and identifying also maybe the right people that she might need to escalate this to. And when we were talking a second ago about contextual transfers, when the time does come for her to have to transfer that call, I'll go back a step here. When she transfers that call, well, that person that she's transferring to receives that call summary. Here I have it. Here's what I wanted to get to. When she finally transfers that call, she's able to contextualize everything. So maybe this was an initial conversation that was assisted with a knowledge base agent. She was able to dig deep, understand exactly what the customer is asking for. And by the time she's transferring it to that level 2 or level 3, well, now it's, that deep digging was done. That context is followed up to the next person and sent over, saving a lot of time and improving that customer experience. Okay, so those were some of the examples that were very phone related. I was going to go next into, hey, what about every voice interaction, whether that's in a room or in a meeting? I can go there next. And I think, how are we doing on time, Peter?
No, we're good. We've got about another 15 minutes.
Okay. So I think we can dive into that and continue there. So we spoke about enrolling your voice in Teams a bit. I think I'll skip over this one, given we touched on this at the beginning. But the next one that is really, really big is something known as the facilitator agent. And what you have here is basically, and it's a dedicated agent that is in your meetings, that is capturing shared notes that end up in a loop component. And it's kind of like a collaborative note that can be shared with all your fellow employees. But the beautiful thing about the facilitator agent is that you can spin this up from anywhere. And this is what's fairly new. And I'll play this video and fast forward to the interesting bits. But the thing that I really love about the facilitator agent is right here is that, cool, okay, if you're spinning up a planned meeting, plenty of third-party products that can obviously take the notes for you and gather them. But with the facilitator agent, you can do this from anywhere, even with an off-the-cuff meeting. So maybe I go into a conference room and I'm speaking, and I say, "Hey, Peter, do you have 5 minutes? Let's take a room. I just want to huddle on something." And we go into that room, and then we realize, we're saying some really good stuff. We want to take notes. We want to make sure that our conversation is captured. Well, now with a meeting team, a meeting room that is Teams enabled, little QR code. You take a picture of the QR code. It opens you take the picture with your phone. It opens in Teams. And right away, you can turn on the facilitator. And on screen, you start seeing the facilitator there. I went a little too fast, should have paused, but on screen, you see that note taker taking notes for you for that off the cuff meeting at any point. Extremely powerful stuff.
To get a little, I wouldn't say one of my pause and hesitation is a bit like today we're all very comfortable with voice, video conferencing and recording. Like if I said to Cole, can we have a quick conversation? In the office, do you mind if I record this conversation? People get a little bit uncomfortable with that. A little bit. They're not ready for that just yet. It's a great. It will come, but people like I don't know. If people are again. Here's HR. Can we just record this conversation? No, actually.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying, and you are right that the person that picks up their phone to take this picture and turn on the facilitator, that is the person who owns that recording and that will own those notes, and they can be shared. But you're absolutely right. If I have that conversation with you, Peter, and I'm like, hey, do you mind if I record this? Well, yes, I am. I'm storing that recording, and it ends up in my OneDrive.
Yes.
The third thing is the facilitator agent is also available for off-the-cuff meetings, even if you're not in a Teams room. So I can just open my phone, I can go into Teams, and I can push the little plus button. I'm not sure how well we'll see that, but there's a little facilitator icon here. And so now if I'm in a coffee shop or I'm anywhere, I'm outside, maybe you and I are sitting on a park bench having a really good conversation, I can open the facilitator app and it can do some live note taking right away. And once again, the benefit of a facilitator, because yes, even, I could say this, Peter, even on the iPhone, there's the voice recorder app, right? I can open the voice recorder and it can record a conversation. But the benefit of the facilitator agent is that it becomes part of the data that that the 365 Copilot has access to. So maybe a month later, I have some questions. It's able to answer questions based off of maybe an email, gathering with conversations that I had, but also looking at the conversation I had through the facilitator app. It's able to put all these different pieces together, and it ties that story of, hey, every voice conversation, you want that part of your data so that Copilot can interpret it.
Mm-hmm.
The last, and then I should have gone to this slide. This is what I was talking about. I was holding my phone, but here's a very clear screenshot showing the ability of taking notes with the facilitator. The last one, this is, I'll be honest take here. I tried this one. It's I think there's still some tweaks to be made or some work to be done here, but it is the ability to break down language barriers with the interpreter agent. And so what this does is you can have many people on a call and you can speak and listen in your own language during a Teams meeting with real-time speech-to-speech interpretation powered by the interpreter agent. So this is also included with your Copilot license, the interpreter agent. I will say this is positioned as real-time speech-to-speech. In my personal experiences with it, it hasn't been full real time yet. And it's not due to network latency or whatnot. Like I have high speed internet. I was trying this in my home office, but it is still very cool. The future is now. You can.
Is it a little bit sluggish where bonjour, sir, and it's a little bit of a pause? It's not, a conversation needs to be flowing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's still a good fallback, right? I traveled to Japan a few years ago, and I used the Google Translate app, and it reminds me a bit of that because, I was speaking to the person, and the person saw that I had my phone, so it was kind of ping-ponging back and forth with a delay, knowing that there was this translation engine in between. So it was a bit unnatural, and my experience with the interpreter agent was that it's still a bit of that. We're not yet where it needs to be for the conversation to feel really 100% natural, but I'm sure it'll get there.
Yeah, it's like any new technology. It takes about 3 renditions for it to really become accepted and more seamless. and speed as well. In this case, it's like, because every time you're speaking, it's going up to the mothership, translating and coming down as well. On that. So it just takes, it's like anything, particularly electronics. Well, with software, the speed will be quite quick because you don't need to wait for the hardware releases. With software, it can be done, it can be done monthly or quarterly. So this time next year, it might be done.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. It kind of reminds me of like people who own Teslas and they just get features pushed from because a lot of it is software based, and they just get new features in their car because they get the new software update. I agree with you that this because a lot of this is happening more on Microsoft's end and it's very software related, that we could see some improvements come very quickly. I agree.
Right. It reminds me of like the friction. Like I remember years ago I was in France, and like before the whole internet, if you went abroad and they didn't speak English, there was friction, but it made it more enjoyable because you remember it. Well, now like we're in France, I can order an Uber. I don't need to speak to the taxi driver, or the driver. I know when he's coming. I know how much it's going to cost. You can't rip me off. I know the hotel because I just seen it on hotels.com. And then basically I'm in a restaurant and the whole menu's in French. Google Translate on the phone and I can understand what the words are. Okay. And then, so all of that and then, like I said, and then you've got Google Maps that you can tell you how to get to A to B. So all of that friction of getting lost in a strange town is all going away now. Yeah.
It's interesting that you're saying, like, that's a very good point and amazing parallels. This title says removing or breaking down the language barrier. I would say maybe reducing the language friction is a better term because I don't think it's completely alleviating it when it comes to live voice interactions, but it's certainly reducing the friction.
Well, the other thing as well, you got content, you got the context. So if I'm saying to my system admin, if you got time, it might be an idea to back up the servers tonight. What I'm telling you, what I'm saying is you need to back up the servers tonight. I'm not saying if you have time, back up the servers. Okay.
That's a very, very good point too. In that regard, Copilot is getting pretty good at making those distinctions. I've noticed it pick up on those distinctions in summarizations. It is getting better at doing even sentiment analysis by looking at the words that are being used or the phrasing. It's certainly capable of if somebody called in and they have a more combative tone, it is able to flag that, which I've noticed it's gotten better in the past few months to be able to do that. So your point is super valid. Those little nuances in the English language can go a long way. And I wonder if the interpreter agent will become clever enough to even flag those nuances as well.
Well, if it can be trained as well on the person's voice and the person's personality and the vocabulary, that's where that is super special. If it can personalize itself with the training, just as like if you ever use something like have you used any graphical tools like Midjourney?
No, I have not. I've heard of it. Yeah.
Okay. There's a training process. It's training. Do you like this? Do you like this? Do you like this? Do you like this? So at the end of this sort of like selection process, it knows what you like and it knows sort of like what you're looking for. Okay. Yeah. It's a little bit like the optician. Is it better like this? Better like this? Better like this? Better like this? So it's homing in on exactly your eyesight. So this can train you on your voice, your personality, over meetings, your emails, your tone. This is what Copilot does. It says, do you want want this in your tone? Okay, then, or your personality. That's when it become quite, it will become quite powerful.
You're right. You make those analogies. I guess the last one would be even like your Spotify playlists or Google Music playlists, as it starts to figure out your musical tastes and suggests you things to discover weekly. I think to do that though, you would need the interpreter agent to be able to come back to you with, hey, when you said this, did you mean this or did you mean that? And I haven't seen it doing any of that yet. I feel like there needs to be some kind of follow-up back checking to do that sort of training. And I haven't seen that yet, but that would be fantastic. You're right that's a logical next step here.
Mm-hmm.
So I've touched on a lot of the tech. I do realize that I skipped over one aspect, and that was really, I think it's a good one, but it is making the distinction between having Copilot in Teams phone and the difference between having real-time summarization versus post-call summarization. And it's an important distinction because especially with a lot of the third-party tools that do this, it's one that's worthy of calling out. People sometimes don't, they say, oh, I already have something that summarizes my meetings. I get the transcript and then it summarizes it for me. But Copilot is capable of also doing real-time summarization. And what that means is, and we touched on this earlier, is that it is live and interactive with you on that call. So even here, it's building tables of stuff or action items based off of that live conversation. The favorite thing that I like to do, I'm on a lot of developer calls, and sometimes they're back to back, and I'm late to join the next call. And I love
you're one of those people, are you? Yeah.
Yeah. And so I love this because I join the call and I can get caught up quickly and be like, who provided their update? Was I mentioned? What are the action items that have been taken so far, that have been jotted down? And I'll say this, it's an amazing coaching opportunity also for sales folks or for product folks. I do a lot of product discovery calls. I get on calls with customers and I ask if it can be recorded, and then they're like, of course. And we get into, hey, some of their business needs and their requirements. And this is so powerful because 10 minutes into the call, I think I understood what the customer was saying. I think I understand their problem. I asked the customer, did I address your questions? Did I address your needs? Does this solution work? But I also asked Copilot onto the side. And sometimes Copilot is like, they said this thing and you didn't really address that thing. I'm like, oh my God, I did it.
Yeah.
It's really an amazing coach for teaching you how to be an active listener. It's kind of by your side, picking up on things that you maybe haven't picked up on the call, so you can catch it and address it immediately. Of course, sometimes these things get picked up afterwards in the summarization, but this is incredibly powerful. And this is just a call out that I wanted to make, the distinction between live, interactive summarization while you're on the call or on the meeting with a customer versus static summarization that gets shot to a third-party system or later on emailed to you.
Got it.
That's kind of summarizes some of the day-to-day interactions and all the AI capable things. I can get into some contact center use cases or what people that have more deep contact center scenarios next, if time allows. If not, we can save that for another.
Maybe another podcast. No.
Sure.
Because the other thing as well with the migration stuff, it's not like it's other things. Like a lot of people got stuff on speed dial, so you got to. And also, I would really like this when you have when you've got a Teams person, if you could. Just as like you've got, how like you can do shortcuts on your taskbar and you can push that out with PowerShell. It would be quite good to sort of say, these are the people on speed dial. If you could standardize like a profile, say these are your speed dial contacts. So it gets people a little bit up to speed. It gives people a bit more awareness of like, okay, great. These are the things on speed dial and on contacts as well.
Yeah, that's come out. You can even do that now from the Teams Admin Center. There is the capability of even from so you used to always be able to add favorites and speed dials within the Teams client, but let's say somebody who's getting onboarded or you wanted to standardize that approach, it wasn't so easy because there was no way to do it from a central administration standpoint. That is now available. I believe it got released. I think it got GA'd around maybe 3 to 6 months ago, but that is very much available now to kind of standardize those speed dials for folks as you're onboarding them or building teams and you want everybody to have that same set.
Mm-hmm. That would be good. All right, Carl. Thank you for your time, and very informative. And we'll get all these recordings up on Spotify, SoundCloud, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and everything else.
Yes, I appreciate it. Always a pleasure speaking with you, Peter.
All right, I'll see you around. Take care.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.